Breaking news, the Donald Trump regime just issued a commutation for George Santos, ordering that George Santos be released from prison immediately. Donald Trump just posted the following. George Santos was somewhat of a rogue, but there are many rogues throughout our country that aren't forced to serve 7 years in prison. I started to think about George when the subject of Democrat Senator Richard Da Nang Dick Blumenthal came up again. As everyone remembers, Da Nang stated for almost 20 years he was a proud Vietnam War veteran, having endured the worst of the war, watching the wounded and dead as he raced up the hills and down the valleys, blood streaming from his face. He was a great hero. He would leak to any and all who would listen, and then it happened. He was a complete and total fraud. He never went to Vietnam. He never saw Vietnam. He never experienced the battles there or anywhere else. His war hero status and even minimal service in our military was totally and completely made up. This is far worse than what George Santos did, and at least Santos had the courage, conviction, and intelligence to always vote Republican. And that's all in caps. George has been in solitary confinement for long stretches of time and by all accounts has been horribly mistreated. Therefore, I just signed a commutation releasing George Santos from prison immediately. Good luck, George. Have a great life! ! The corrupt regime in the history of the United States, while there is a government shutdown, while the Democratic Congresswoman-elect Adelita Grijalva from Arizona's 7th Congressional District is being deprived of being sworn in as a member of Congress, literally taxation without representation for the 7th Congressional District in Arizona. Trump is spending his time ordering MAGA Republicans not to show up to Congress, but is commuting George Santos. And let's be clear, George Santos was never charged or tried or anything about like lying about his background, okay? That was super weird, and it showed that he was a complete liar his entire life. But let's be very clear what George Santos was actually convicted of: filing fraudulent FEC reports, embezzling funds from campaign donors, stealing people's identities to steal their money, changing credit cards without authorization, falsely and lawfully obtaining unemployment benefits through fraud, and then lying on reports to the U.S. House of Representatives about his money and about his reports. He would just literally charge people's credit cards so he can buy himself stuff. He wasn't charged with lying about being the volleyball player or lying about college or that his parents were in 9/11 or all the crazy stuff that he lied about, which, by the way, made him likely disqualified from his positions. But he was charged with very, very serious crimes. A judge on Long Island federal court ultimately sentenced George Santos to 87 months in prison for wire fraud and aggravated identity theft on April 25th, 2025. George Santos himself pled guilty to everything that I just listed right there: stealing people's credit cards, running their credit cards without authorization. Now, about a little bit a while ago, Donald Trump was asked on potentially granting clemency for George Santos. And here's what Donald Trump said. Let's play it.
Okay. And what about George Santos?
Boy.
He just went away. 7 years.
You know, he was, he lied like hell. I mean, I have to tell you.
Yeah.
And I didn't know him, but he was 100% for Trump. But I might have met him, maybe not. I don't know. But he was a congressman, and his vote was solid. It sounds like a lot. He got in. You know, you could blame the other side for not checking him out.
Yeah.
He didn't do all those things that he said.
Local news missed it. Everybody missed it.
Well, you could say the media missed it. Everybody missed it. They found out about this stuff after the election was won. So nobody's talked to me about it. So they really, they haven't talked to me about the two. They have.
Now a reminder, George Santos would run around the halls of Congress doing things like this. Let's play it.
You are human. I do not care. You are human. You are human. That's what you are. Human stuff. You have no business in this building defending terrorists.
Guess that's what Donald Trump means about being MAGA. That's the type of politician, quality of character that matters in the Republican Party today. George Santos, when he attended his first criminal court appearance back in Central Islip in New York back on April 10th, 2023, he spent his time attacking former President Biden, then President Biden. Let's play this.
Fight to defend myself. The reality is it's a witch hunt, because it makes no sense that in 4 months, 5 months, I'm indicted. You have Joe Biden's entire family receiving deposits from.
And I'll just remind you that George Santos admitted to filing fraudulent FEC reports, embezzling funds from campaign donors, stealing people's identities, then charging credit cards without their authorization, obtaining unemployment benefits through fraud, and then lying on reports in the U.S. House of Representatives. George Santos sent a letter recently to Donald Trump saying the following: Dear Mr. President, during my short tenure in Congress, I stood firmly behind your agenda. 100% of the time I championed policies that strengthened our economy. I did it proudly, sir, because I believed in the mission you set out to accomplish for the American people. Sir, I appeal to your sense of justice and humanity. I have nowhere else to turn. You have been a man of second chances. With the deepest respect and gratitude, I thank you for taking the time to hear my plea. Truly yours, George Santos, former Republican Congress member, New York's 3rd Congressional District. And I'll just remind you that we covered this morning as well, where you had MAGA Mike Johnson, who has sent all the MAGA Republican Congress members home. He's saying how much he liked George Santos earlier this morning, which probably should have been maybe a warning of what was to come. Here, play this clip.
See, somebody told me that she accused me of ousting Santos, which of course is the exact opposite of the history. Everyone can go review what happened. I opposed his expulsion from Congress. I voted against it. I advocated to my colleagues not to do that. And you can take George Santos's word for it himself. I think right before he submitted to prison, he did a.
Take George Santos's word for himself. I want to bring in Harry Litman of the Talking Feds YouTube channel, Talking Feds Substack, former top federal prosecutor. We're getting this live. Harry and I were shooting another video when we got that news. Then we said, all right, we're doing this, Harry. And that's what Harry's face has been looked like since I first told him about the news. Just a reminder, Harry, former top federal prosecutor at the Eastern District of Pennsylvania, former top federal prosecutor and Maine justice. Harry, what's your response?
George Santos, man, where to begin? But I guess the bottom line is, what greater demonstration could you have that the President of the United States cares not a whit about honesty, integrity, criminal conduct, serious criminal conduct, what he pleaded to, and cares only about one thing. The way that, remember, Santos tried to hang in there for a few months successfully was by being such a Trump partisan that, given the razor-thin margins, Johnson and others couldn't bounce him. By the way, don't you think that Johnson had a heads up in the what was happening in the morning when he could all of a sudden come and say, oh, look, I'm a Santos fan after all. What you delineated that he pleaded guilty to, and it was always clear to me, I was on record with you, that he was going to have to. He had not a leg to stand on. That was this much of the absolute life of fraud and theft and taking advantage of people, and including vulnerable victims, older people, not just in the United States, but down in South America where he previously lived. This guy is a rogue with a capital R. He became a laughing stock, but it wasn't so funny when you thought about the human face of all the people he'd victimized, not to mention the people of New York who voted for him based on, every detail in his resume was made up. But my God, what does it take to actually have justice evenly applied when you're a friend of Trump? Obviously, it's this, right? That was the perfect letter on his part. The absolute flattery, appeal to Donald Trump. I stood by you 100%. Even Trump in the interview, he doesn't know anything. He did lie like hell. That seems to be like, a little slap on the wrist, but he was for me 100%. That is the ultimate get out of jail free card. And I mean, this guy, it's not as if his crimes were like some separate Jekyll and Hyde situation. This is how he got to Congress. This is how he cheated people, lied again and again, including in that obstreperous way that you saw, really added insult to injury by showing feigned Trumpian outrage when he was caught and then caught and then caught and then caught more. And when push came to shove, he had to plead guilty. So it's not simply that he's, a walking crime spree, but he is, as a member of Congress and a candidate, completely taking advantage of people, completely corrupting the process. Man, what does it take? Sheriff Joe, I'm trying to think of a few others, but Santos's entire personality is based on two things: lying his ass off about everything and betting on Donald Trump to help him out. And at the end of the day, that final bet pays off and he's walking now a free man. As you see, I cannot fully even integrate it. And this is, we've seen a lot of crazy stuff with Trump. It seems on top of everything else, so stupid, but so is other things that have just sort of passed by. But George friggin' Santos, there's just no justice in the country.
I think that's the way to conclude this video. There's just no justice in this country anymore. The DOJ lost all of its credibility. There is no legal system at this point. It is a laughingstock to the world, a laughingstock to people who care about the law and order and democracy. Just thinking back to my days as a law student, even right now, you and I are law professors. Yeah. It makes it incredibly difficult to try to explain what the hell is happening when we live in a lawless fascist regime right now. And today it sums it up on this Friday. Everybody get out to the No Kings protest and peacefully protest this fascist authoritarian regime. We need to have our voices be heard. Everybody subscribe to Harry Litman's YouTube channel, Talking Feds. And Harry Litman.
One silver lining, by the way, Ben, a new costume idea for tomorrow with the frogs and whatever. That George Santos purple suit costume. I think that could go over pretty well at some of these demonstrations. What do you think?
I'm going to stick to the frogs. Everybody hit subscribe and have a good one.
Thanks, Ben.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.